In 2025, the world of travel is changing fast. The places we once visited freely are starting to close their doors to Americans, and it's happening for reasons you might not expect. From political tensions to national security concerns, these countries are making it harder than ever for US citizens to visit. Keep watching as we dive into the top 10 nations where Americans can't travel anymore, and why this shift could affect your next vacation or business trip. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more eye-opening travel updates you won't hear anywhere else. Number 1. Russia. For years, Russia has been a go-to destination for tourists, business travelers, and even students from around the world, including the US. However, escalating political tensions and economic sanctions between the US and Russia have resulted in tighter travel restrictions. The year 2025 marks a significant shift, with the Russian government now implementing a de facto travel ban on US citizens. The ongoing Ukraine conflict has fueled bitter relations, and the imposition of US sanctions has only further strained ties. The US has responded with its own sanctions, creating a diplomatic standoff that is severely affecting everyday interactions, including travel. This freeze on travel stems from more than just political disagreements. It's also linked to national security concerns. Russian authorities have expressed increasing anxiety about espionage and foreign influence within the country. The US Embassy has reduced its operations in Russia, leaving Americans without proper support or consular services. As a result, entering Russia as a US citizen in 2025 is becoming nearly impossible, with stricter visa requirements and an uptick in refusals. Travel to Russia, once a regular feature of international tourism, is now off the table for Americans, making it a country you simply can't visit anymore. Number 2. North Korea. North Korea has long been one of the most off-limits countries for American travelers due to the nation's oppressive regime and its intense political isolation. In 2025, North Korea officially reinstates a total travel ban for US citizens, making it impossible for Americans to visit, even on organized tours. The reason? The increasing hostility between the US and North Korea, coupled with heightened concern over espionage and the potential for political manipulation, has led to an outright refusal of entry. Despite a brief period where some Americans managed to visit under tightly controlled conditions, the situation has worsened with no clear diplomatic solution in sight. The Kim Jong-un regime's growing suspicion of US nationals has led to the tightening of travel restrictions for citizens of the US. The lack of diplomatic relations and the constant threats of detention or imprisonment make any attempt to visit North Korea too risky. For those who wish to experience the reclusive country, the US government now strongly advises against it, and the travel ban is a clear indication that North Korea is entirely off limits to American citizens in 2025. Number 3. Iran. For years, Iran has been one of the most challenging countries for American travelers to enter. The complex diplomatic relationship between the US and Iran has led to significant barriers, but in 2025, these barriers are set to rise dramatically. The Iranian government, frustrated with US interference in its domestic and regional affairs, has imposed a blanket travel ban on all US citizens. This decision comes amid ongoing tensions over Iran's nuclear program, US sanctions, and the larger geopolitical conflicts in the Middle East. Even with a valid visa, entering Iran has become nearly impossible for Americans. The US government has issued strong advisories against travel to Iran, warning of arbitrary detentions and the lack of consular assistance. This is especially concerning as Iran has been known to target US citizens, particularly journalists, businesspeople, and academics, for political leverage. The new travel ban intensifies the already strict restrictions, making it clear that any American attempting to travel to Iran could face severe legal consequences. As diplomatic relations deteriorate, the situation has only worsened, and Iran is firmly on the list of countries where Americans are no longer welcome. Number 4. Venezuela. Venezuela has been a country in turmoil for years, with political instability, economic crises, and social unrest becoming daily norms. What was once a popular destination for American tourists and expatriates has now turned into a near impossible location for US citizens to visit. In 2025, Venezuela announced a total suspension of US citizen entry in response to rising political tensions between the two nations. The political standoff, which began under President Maduro, has only intensified with the US government's support of opposition movements in the country. This political fracture has led to the suspension of tourist visas and the refusal of any non-essential travel. Americans trying to enter Venezuela, whether on business, vacation, or humanitarian reasons, now find themselves turned away at the border. The Venezuelan government, citing national security and foreign interference, has made it clear that US citizens are no longer welcome. The lack of stable infrastructure, the worsening economic conditions, and the growing anti-American sentiment all contribute to why Venezuela has become a no-go destination for Americans in 2025. This travel restriction is just another example of how political conflicts are directly impacting the ability of US citizens to travel freely around the world. Number 5. China. Once a thriving destination for American travelers, China now presents a far different picture in 2025. The US-China relationship has been increasingly strained over the last few years, and in response, China has imposed serious travel restrictions on Americans. While the US government has long cautioned against visiting China due to espionage concerns, 2025 marks a more dramatic shift. Visa categories for US citizens have been restricted, especially for those involved in business, academia, or journalism. The growing trade wars, technological disputes, and accusations of cyber attacks have resulted in heightened scrutiny of Americans attempting to enter. The Chinese government is now far more cautious about allowing US nationals to set foot on its soil. Those who do manage to gain entry often face intense surveillance, and certain regions are outright inaccessible. With mounting diplomatic tensions, China has become a nation where American travelers are no longer freely welcomed, and entry is a complex, risky endeavor. The climate of suspicion and increasing control is forcing American visitors to reconsider China as a viable destination. Number 6. Cuba. Cuba, the Caribbean island that once represented freedom and allure for American travelers, has taken a hard turn back toward isolation in 2025. After years of warming relations between the US and Cuba, the country has decided to reintroduce travel restrictions for Americans, essentially bringing back a travel ban. This shift is directly linked to the political volatility in both countries and the resurgence of tensions over economic sanctions, human rights concerns, and Cuba's handling of US influence. The Cuban government's stance has led to a suspension of tourist visas and a freeze on travel-related business dealings with the US. The US State Department now strongly advises against travel to Cuba, as the renewed restrictions complicate travel for US citizens. With commercial flights and cruise lines stopped, and US embassy services restricted, Cuba is essentially closed to Americans in 2025. For many, this reversal is a sad reminder of how quickly political landscapes can change, leaving a once thriving destination off limits. Number 7. Afghanistan. Afghanistan has always been one of the most dangerous places for foreign nationals to visit, but now, in 2025, it's a complete no-go for Americans. The Taliban regime's control over the country has made it impossible for the US government to offer any consular support. For years, Afghanistan has faced instability and conflict, but with the rise of the Taliban, the situation has become even more volatile. Americans attempting to visit Afghanistan now risk being detained, held hostage, or caught in the midst of ongoing conflicts. US citizens are advised to avoid all travel to Afghanistan due to the serious risks to personal safety, and even humanitarian efforts are heavily restricted. The lack of infrastructure, communication, and security makes it one of the most perilous countries for travelers. Given the ongoing threats and the absence of US diplomatic representation in Kabul, Americans can no longer visit Afghanistan safely, and travel to this region has been effectively banned. Number 8. Belarus. Belarus, once an easier destination for American travels within Eastern Europe, has taken a sharp turn in 2025. Following the imposition of sanctions by both the United States and the EU, Belarusian authorities have responded by implementing travel bans for American citizens. The country's leadership, led by President Lukashenko, has faced intense international criticism for its actions, particularly regarding political repression and human rights violations. These sanctions have directly impacted the ability of US citizens to travel to Belarus, with visa applications being routinely denied. Tourists, journalists, and even diplomats are finding it increasingly difficult to gain entry. The US government has consistently warned Americans about the risks of travel to Belarus, advising against any non-essential visits. As tensions between Belarus and the West continue to rise, the likelihood of travel restrictions tightening further is high. The political climate in Belarus has made it clear that Americans are no longer welcome, with no immediate resolution in sight. Number 9. Nicaragua. Nicaragua, a country once known for its vibrant culture and natural beauty, has become increasingly difficult for US citizens to visit in 2025. In response to growing pressure over US support for opposition movements, the Nicaraguan government has imposed strict travel bans for Americans. These restrictions have been implemented against the backdrop of political instability and a crackdown on dissent within the country. President Ortega's government has retaliated against foreign influence by severely limiting the ability of US citizens to enter the country. Entry is now restricted to those with valid government-approved reasons, and tourist visas are becoming nearly impossible to secure. For many, Nicaragua was once an attractive destination for its stunning beaches and rich cultural heritage. Now, however, Americans face barriers that prevent them from experiencing the beauty of this Central American nation. As political tensions grow, the future of travel in Nicaragua remains uncertain, with more restrictions likely to follow. Number 10. Syria. Syria has been a dangerous place for years due to the ongoing civil war, but in 2025, the country has become a definite no-go zone for Americans. The conflict, which began in 2011, has left the country in ruins, with no stable government and extreme risks for foreigners. The US State Department has issued cleared warnings advising against any travel to Syria due to the constant threat of violence, kidnapping, and terrorism. American citizens who attempt to travel to Syria face severe risks, including detention by hostile groups and potential involvement in the ongoing conflict. The lack of US diplomatic presence in the country means that American citizens have no consular support if they find themselves in trouble. With the Syrian government and rebel groups continuing to fight for control, the country remains one of the most dangerous places on Earth. As a result, Syria is officially closed to American travelers, and those planning to visit should reconsider for their own safety. As you can see, 2025 is ushering in an era of travel restrictions that could impact millions of Americans. These countries, once accessible for business, leisure, or cultural exchange, have either closed their borders or significantly limited entry for US citizens. The geopolitical shifts, security concerns, and political tensions surrounding these nations are changing the travel landscape. If you had plans to visit any of these countries, now is the time to reconsider your travel plans. Stay informed, stay prepared, and always check the latest travel advisories before booking your next trip. Which country surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest travel news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.